Today's reporting webinar will cover some best practices for report creation to create clear and efficient reports. Then we'll go through the basics of the report builder tool. So for some of you, this might be review. I know I saw a couple of you are longtime SAM users, but for others, this is a good introduction to how to build a report in SAM. And then finally, we're going to cover using reports. So these are ways to use reports to really get the most out of the data that your agency is collecting in SAM. So for starters, why bother using reports anyway? So the first reason is that you can provide your staff and your teams clear and actionable data. There's so much data in SAM, they don't need to see everything. They really just need to see the data that relates to their programs or their caseload, and reports are a way to do that. Also, you can quickly see trends and gaps in your program and agency workflow. So you might create a report and open it up and see that no one's collecting information for a field, or the information is inconsistent, and that's an opportunity for you to kind of reevaluate your workflow and make things a little bit more neat. And then most importantly, reports allow you to filter and focus the huge amount of information collected in your SAM so that you can make sense of it, and you can do this with real-time data. So as soon as information is added into SAM, you can access it from a report, which is really cool, because otherwise you would have to be putting information into an Excel sheet, and only then do you see it, but with SAM, it's right away. There's another reason to use reports, which is my favorite, which is that you can really impress your staff members. So when you start to do really cool things with reports, like update all your records at once or add a communication record to 500 families at one time, they'll be asking, how did you do that? Reports are super powerful. And today I hope you can all come away with something that will make your staff and coworkers look like this owl, which is actually my face a lot of times when I talk to Stephanie. And I'm like, what? Sam can do that? Okay, so let's talk about what makes a good report. You've all seen terrible Excel spreadsheets with like 500 columns, so you know what a bad report looks like. But what about a good report in SAM? A good report is purpose-driven. That means you have a good reason for why it exists, right? There's no reason to make a report of all your families and all of their information, because you might as well just be looking at SAM. So a good report is focused on one question or one problem you want to look at, or maybe it's a particular program you want to evaluate. And really, the more specific you can make the report, the more insight it will provide to you. Good reports are easy to understand. There's really only so much information that your brain can handle at one time. So you want minimal data to have maximum insights. And by this, I really mean limiting the number of columns that you include on a report. I try to keep it at 10 or less. I see a lot of times people put fields like the family's address on a report, and you really would never need their mailing address on a report, I guess, unless you were doing a report about family address fields, seeing who was missing. So the less you can have, the better. And finally, a good report shows you what's next, right? Like, what is this data telling me? What can I do from this data? It drives action for your mission. So a really simple example, you could maybe do a report of all inquiring families, and then from there see, okay, which of these families has not received a follow-up phone call? I'm going to go ahead and follow up with these families. So that's my what's next from this report. Before we get into actually building a report, I just wanted to say briefly that you should think of the report building process like a ball of clay or something. Like you have this chunk and you kind of start shaping it, and it becomes clearer and clearer the more you work with it. Because really the report building process is not linear. It's something like this. You make the report, you kind of filter it, you use it, and as soon as you start using the report, you really figure out what you need, what you don't need. You can add some really cool filters to refine the information that you're seeing in that report. So I say this because I don't want you to feel frustrated if you make a report and it seems clunky or it's not perfect, because my reports are never perfect the first time I make them. I add like fields I don't need, and I don't really know how to filter it. It's really a process to make a solid report. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to go over to my SAM site here, which looks a lot like your guys's. And when you're in your SAM site on the home page, you can always scroll down, and here is your report menu, which many of you are likely familiar with. And you can always customize your report menu here by clicking the pencil icon. And here I can rearrange existing reports, and I can also add reports to my menu. But this is just for reports that already exist in your SAM. So what about making a brand new report? For that, you need to go over to Settings here. And from Settings, you go over to Report Builder. So here you'll see all the reports that already exist in your SAM. And sometimes it's a good idea before you make a report to see if that report already exists. I like to do Control F, which gives me a search field. I can search for reports. In this case, I want to make a report about special needs, and I can see that there's no report called special needs yet. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new one up at the top here. Now you'll see you also have the option to create a new report from existing. This is helpful if a report already exists, like this one is accounting invoices. If I wanted to make a report about specific invoices, I might choose to base my report off of this one. But for our needs, let's go ahead and create a brand new report over here. So the first thing that pops up is the title. I say be as specific as possible with the title, like almost overkill. You should say what the report is about and why it's created. So for our case, I'm going to call it Adoptable Teenage Children with Special Needs. And let's say this is for a fictional program called Special Needs Outreach. So we're trying to get these kids adopted. And here is my memo field. So you can write anything in here that's helpful to your staff, like this is for the 2017 Special Needs Outreach Program, SNOP. Okay, I didn't really think that through. The good thing about this is that you can always come back and change the report title. You can change this memo. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as SNOP and hit save. And then SAM asks you, okay, who is this report about? You have to choose one entity. Those are all these things here that we call them entities. Some reports, or I should say sometimes you can add a secondary entity to a report if that entity is linked to your main entity. So like a birth mother might be linked to a child, a family could be linked to an adopted child. But for now, you just want to say, well, who's the focus of this report? In my case, it's children. So I'll click on child. And as soon as I click on child, I'm shown all the subtables underneath the child table. So child is already included. I might want to add some other fields. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and add medical probably. So I can do Control F and search medical to find that table. So I'll do medical info. And then I think I want to do the case too, so I can see who's working with the child. That information is usually under the case table. I don't know if I need anything else here quite yet, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the bottom and hit save. And I can come back and add more tables if I need to, but we'll start with these. So now I see all the tables I've added to my report, and if you click on one of them, you'll see all the fields for that table. So the fields you select are going to become the columns at the top of your report. Like think of the very top of your Excel spreadsheet. They have those column names. So let's see. I want to do the child's age. I want to do the child's last name and their first name. And it's helpful for me, like I work with SAM a lot, so I kind of know where fields are. If you don't know if your field is here, you can always do Control F. And I'm going to search, see if there's any special needs fields here. Oh yes, here they are. So we have special needs and special needs memo. So I will save that. And now you can see that those fields that I just selected are here at the top. But I want to add more from my other tables. So I'm going to go to my sidebar here and click Add Field to Report. And it's the same screen as before, but now I can select the case table. So I want to add the case worker, I think. I'm sort of thinking like I'd want to know who's working with this child. I'll hit save. I'm going to click add field to report again and go down to medical info and see if they have anything that might apply here. Like I'm thinking this disabilities field will give us more information. So this is enough for me to start with. And now that I've got my fields up here, I want to rearrange them in a way that makes sense because currently they're just in the order that I added them. So I'm going to go over here and click Modify Column Order. And let's see, let's do the last name first. That's sort of how I think. Some agencies do first name of the youth. It's really whatever, however you guys work. The age. Let's see, special needs. So I think this is a yes or no field. I'll leave that there. Let's move disabilities right next to special needs. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and open my report here in the sidebar and see what it looks like. Okay, so you see that Sam is pulling every child. There's so many children on this report. It's really not helpful, and none of these children have special needs on this first screen. So I'm going to have to go back to my report and tell Sam that I don't want every child on my report. So you can either go back into your previous tab, but if you ever have accidentally closed the tab, you can always get to the report configuration from options here and clicking edit this report. That brings you right back to that screen we were on before. So now that I have my fields that I want, I need to start filtering the information that's brought in. So I'm going to add a filter over here by clicking the pencil. And the very first filter that I know I want is I only want to see children with special needs. So I'm going to go to the table, child, and find that special needs field. There it is. And I want to say equals yes. So that's only going to give me children with special needs. I'm going to hit save. And now open my report again. All right, so I'm brought down to some fewer children that do have special needs. But you can see here, Daniela is 24 years old. That case is likely closed. So it might be bad data entry, or maybe that record's just kept there. So I need to exclude people that are older than the age range that I want, since I want to focus on teenage children. So I'm going to go back to my tab. Let's see, I'll close that one, and here I'm back on the configuration. I'll refresh it there so I can see my filter. I'm going to add another filter, clicking this plus button here, and it always defaults to the last table that you added, which is kind of cool if you're adding a lot of filters. So let's go ahead and filter by age. So there's a couple ways to do this. You could filter by child age, but that gets a little like wonky if they're 17 years and 4 months. I think it's a better idea to use a birth date. Stephanie is all about using dates whenever possible because they're exact and they're clean, and it's easier to sort. So if I want to look at only 13-year-olds and older, I'll have to do child birth date is less than 13 years ago today. So that would be March 21st, 2004. And then I want to make sure that I don't see any children who are older than 19. And since that's a set age, I'm just going to go ahead and say child age is less than 19 years. So now I'm limiting the children. And I might want to also make sure that no children who have been adopted show up on this report, since this is an outreach. I don't want to try to re-adopt these children. So I'm going to add one more filter down here. This time it's going to be coming from the child case table because that's where I keep all of my case status information. Let's do, I think there's one called case status. There it is, child case status. In this case, I'm going to say not equals adopted. I might want to do discharged as well. I'm going to go ahead and add another one, and you can see here it's done child case again for me. So I will do case status, not equals discharge. So you see I've really filtered down the children who are eligible for this report. And just like everything else on this report, I can come back and I can tweak these filters. I can delete the filters. Nothing is permanent. I'm not changing any information in my SAM. So there's nothing scary about trying different filters. So please go ahead and feel free to do that when you make your report. I'm going to hit save. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and open my report again here on the sidebar. Great, so let's see, I'm going to click over here, records per page. I'm changing this from 20 to all. So I can see these are all the children who are between 13 and 18 plus years old who have special needs. So here's where like the fun stuff starts to happen, in my opinion. Now that I have information that's really narrowed down to my purpose, I can start cleaning up the data or using the data in a way that's helpful. So the first thing that I noticed looking at this is that my I'm so sorry, I got booted off the internet for a second, but I'm back now, so sorry about that. Sorry about that disconnection. So let's go ahead and go back to what I was saying. Oh, yay, I'm glad you could hear me again. I'm so sorry about that. So when I'm looking at my report, I see that some of these fields are blank. So the cool thing about reports is that you can actually hover over a field and add information. So in my case, I see, let's see, this child has a memo that he suffers from stuttering, but there's no disability. So I can go ahead and click on this field, and I can add that he has a speech impairment since he has stuttering. I'll click save, and that has updated his record across SAM. So this is a fun, okay, fun in my opinion. This is a cool way to clean up your records. Here's another child who has generalized anxiety with no disability listed. I can go ahead and add, I guess this would be emotional disturbance. I'm actually not sure about like what fits what criteria, but pretend I know what I'm doing here. So there we go. And then here's another one I could clean up, just kind of going through and making sure everything's nice and neat. So maybe you'll be doing this, or maybe you'll give your report to your staff member and say, hey, can you go through and clean up these records for me? I'm working on an outreach program. Another thing you can do with a report is you can click on the top of a field here, and you can search by blank. So I only want to see who's missing a memo. Oh, wait, I filtered who has a memo. Let's go back. Filter out entered values. Oh, okay, click on default. I added too many filters. If you ever kind of like find yourself narrowing things down too much, you can always click on this default button, and that brings you back to the default settings of the report. So I'll click on special needs, and I will filter out entered values, and now I see everybody who's missing the memo, which are these two kids. So maybe from here I'll want to make a note like, hey guys, can you give me a memo for your kids if the caseworker is responsible? I'm going to go ahead and hit default again, and let's say that I know my staff really well, and I know which caseworkers have a really low caseload. From here, I could actually assign kids who don't have a caseworker to one caseworker automatically. So I'm going to show you guys a feature of reports called bulk updating, which is like a magical thing. I'm sure some of you use it. If you don't use it, get ready to be amazed. So I want to manually assign children without a caseworker to someone. So I'm going to go ahead and click on caseworker, filter out entered values. So I'm only going to see those who are blank. And I'm going to, let's say I know that Michael Nelson is a special case. I don't really know how to assign him. I can click on him and I can exclude this entity. So he disappears. He's not off the report. I'm just not looking at him right now. And from here, I can go to options, then down to advanced options, and I can bulk update these records. So I'll click that, and Sam says, hey, what field do you want to update? And you can update multiple fields, like perhaps I want to set all their eye colors to brown and their caseworkers to someone. So for now, I'm just going to add a field over here. Let's see the case worker. I'm going to give both of these children to Stephanie because she's got so much free time. She can handle them. I'll click save, and then Sam says, are you sure you want to do this? This is what's going to happen. I'm going to set the caseworker as Stephanie for these 2 children. I say, yep, that's what I want. I'll click confirm, and now it says I did it. Now there's no more records for you to look at, so I'm going to go ahead and hit default again. So now I've got, almost everybody's got something except for the kids that I excluded. So from here I could manually assign a different caseworker if I wanted to. Maybe I'll give this to this person. There we go. So this is just a great way to go through your records and fix stuff, fill stuff out, see what's missing. Another great thing you could do from a report is you can add a field. So you could add it directly instead of going back to configuration. I'm going to go ahead and click options and add a field. Let's see. I wonder if there's any more medical information we might want. I'm going to go ahead and add mental disorders, which I guess my staff is collecting separately. I'm going to hit save. So there we've got some more information. And now that I look at this report, I know it's filtered only to children with special needs. I'm not sure that I even need to see child special needs here anymore. It's a bit redundant. They're all yes. I know that they're all special needs. I'm going to click on this. And I'm going to click remove this field. And this takes this field off my report. Or it should. There we go. So this is just a basic intro on how to create a nice, neat report for a specific purpose. So from here, I might want to have a staff meeting and go through these kids and see what we should do. But an even easier way to get some insight into this data is to add some report stats. So I'll show you quickly how to do that. We'll want to click on options and go back to edit this report. And here I am back on the report configuration screen. And if you scroll down, you'll see report stats. So I'm going to go ahead and add a stat with this plus button. So now I can choose what field I want more information about. So I'm going to go ahead and click on medical info, and let's do that disabilities. I want to see kind of like how many kids are suffering from what disabilities. That might help inform my staff as to how our outreach should go. So from here you could give it like a different title if you wanted to. I usually just leave it as default. And then you can choose what you want to see. So I like to do percent. They just make more sense to me. You can also leave your record count up. And then these don't really make a whole lot of sense for a disabilities count, but if this was like a number field, and I'll show you this a little bit later, these sorts of stats are really cool. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and do a record count and percentage of disabilities and hit save. And then I think I also want some information on my caseworkers. Like, is there one caseworker who's working with more children? Maybe I'm too lazy to count. I'm going to go ahead and click on child case. I'm going to add the caseworker and do the same settings as before, the count and the percent. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to open my report again. And now up here at the top, you'll see this little box that says show report stats. And when you click that, oh, now I've got this cool information, which would be especially helpful if I had more than 14 children. But this just shows like, wow, we've got a lot of kids with autism from this group. Maybe we should do a special autism outreach. In fact, if I click on this stat, boom, there's all the kids who have autism. Like it's an immediate way to sort. Okay, who has some emotional issues that we can help get them paired up with a family who could help with that. And then once again, you can always click on default and go back to your view. And then it's a cool way to see like, wow, okay, Daniel has 3 of these kids. Maybe we should schedule some time together to talk about his cases and how he's going to work with outreach. Click on him. I see all the kids. So if you ever do meetings with your staff or teams, this is a great way to pull information in real time based off whatever stats you tend to talk about, which always differ depending on the nature of the report. Let's see, I think that's all I wanted to talk about here. Oh, one more thing, just one more thing, the cherry on top of this report. I'm going to go back to options and edit this report. And come on, report. I'll just go back here, do a little cheat, go back to my tab. I'm going to change the way this report is sorted by default. Maybe I want to focus on the oldest children. I want them to be at the very top, at the forefront of whoever opens this report. So I'm going to go to this default sorting section here and click the pencil icon. And from here, you can choose ways to sort your table. So a really basic way to sort this information is the child's age. Child age, and then you can choose, do you want it to go top down or bottom up? We'll do descending, so the oldest is first. Hit save, open the report again. Now I've got the oldest child to the youngest child. I've got some stats about their disabilities and caseworkers. If I wanted to, like let's say I'm going to a meeting today, I could print this report. Let's see, there it is, print report. And look so official, like look how prepared I am. I've got all this information at hand. So yeah, there's a basic report, pretty cool and painless. I mean, if I were new to this and I hadn't kind of practiced this before, I probably would have had some other fields on here I ended up not needing, or maybe I want to create fields. Yeah, and I might want to talk to my staff about the special needs memo, like do we really need it? What's going on with it? Okay, moving right along. What do we want to do next? I know that it's almost the end of the fiscal year, or I guess it's almost the end of the fiscal quarter, so I thought we could do a little financial report to show you guys the real power of report stats. So I actually started one over here. Let me just make sure no one's asking questions. No one is asking questions, good. You're probably just all too amazed to ask. So here is a report that I created for accounting adoption fees fiscal year. Oh, that must be Stephanie. I don't know if viewer 13 is Stephanie, but if it is, yeah, if you have any questions, we can totally help you out. And Stephanie will hop on and answer some other questions too. But let's talk accounting real quick. So this is just a basic accounting report. You can see I've added the family as my main entity, and accounting is done under the case. So I had to add the case. And from there, I could add accounting and the fees. So the goal of this report is to see an overview of my finances from adoption fees only. So if we open the report, I see tons of fees. And what's the problem with this? It's not filtering by year. I see some like 2014, and I really don't need to look at that information. So just like we did with the child report, I have to start, after I've got my fields on, I have to start narrowing down with a filter. So in this case, I only want to look at the fiscal year. So for that, let's see, I need to think this through. I'm going to do the accounting due date. Just thinking of some date fields that will help me narrow down. I want it to be greater than, let's see, 6/30/2016. That's like the end of last 2015 fiscal year, depending on your system. Let's also do the receive date, just in case those are different, because not everybody pays on time. That will also be greater than 6/30. And I'm going to say this is an or. So it can either be that the due date was greater than or the receive date, depending. And let's add one. No, I think that's good enough for now. So I'm going to save that and make sure that my report, if I click to open it again, Let's see. Now the oldest date is last July, so this is a good look at my fiscal year. You can see I've got some like late payments, outstanding payments, but it's a little hard to make sense of what's going on here because I don't have any stats. So let's go back to my report configuration, and let's actually, before I add stats, I'm going to show you something that's even easier to add. At the very bottom, you can see report options. You can click things. I'm just going to go ahead and click them all. I'm going to show totals. I'm going to show averages, minimum and maximum. And these are only going to affect fields that have this enabled. So a lot of them are SAM default fields that have averages. They're numerical fields. And then one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck fields values editable. So when I had that child report, you saw I was clicking on blank fields and adding values. I don't really want someone to be able to open my accounting report and edit my accounting information, whether on purpose or by accident. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that to protect the data. This is good for accounting because generally you're doing this outside of a report. You've got procedures in place. Let's open our report again. And now you can see that at the top here, like right beneath my field names, I've got a total, an average, and a minimum and maximum, which is really cool if you just want a quick rundown of like, okay, what's the average fee families paid? How much are we pulling in this past year? Like how much are people owing us, right? So we've got $3,000 left that families haven't paid us. So this is a quick way to add some information to your reports. If you don't have stats available, well, I shouldn't say stats available. If you haven't added stats yet, you can at least add this sort of information and get an understanding of what's going on. But let's go ahead and add some stats so you can see how cool they are. Click on options, edit this report, and let's see. I want to add some stats over here. Click the plus button. Let's add the fee type. I think that's right here under fee type. I'm going to do record count and percent totals. Oh, actually, I haven't done this yet. Well, let's just see what happens. Totals percent, average. I don't know. I guess it's whatever you want to see. Like, do you need to know the average for your fee type? That might not be too helpful. I'm going to click on save here. Select an aggregate field. Oh no. Okay, if you ever get scared and you're not sure what's going on, you can always just click back, which maybe isn't the best way to do it. But sometimes if I'm not sure what I'm doing, I'm like, I'm just going to start over. I'm going to hit back. I'm going to hit back. I'm going to go back to the screen, and I'm going to add it again. This time I'm just going to leave things kind of basic. Fee type, and I apologize, I'm not really skilled in accounting yet. So when it comes to knowing what you would want to know about accounting, I'm sort of just making it up as I go along. I'm just going to leave that as it is, good like that. Let's add another one. Maybe I want to know what program is pulling in the most money. Like maybe we should focus there or do some marketing for other programs. So let's do the case type, or maybe the case program. Yes, let's do the case program and country to see like who is bringing money into our agency. Maybe people need some help in other areas, and let's go ahead and do that. Let's open our report again to see what these look like. So here you can see some stats here. And we can see that domestic adoption is accounting for 36% and Ethiopia is for 20%. So from here, I might decide like, hey, we should do some more marketing for our India outreach program and get families in. It would really be whatever your agency decides. But this is a great way to make sense of monetary things. You could do this with placements, like child placements, any sort of end of the year information that you need to understand. So from here, now that I have this fiscal year, I have the option to create a review report from this one. Maybe I want to do quarters instead of the entire year. And this will let me just keep everything together, but edit the filters. So I could change the date range. I could change what I'm looking for. I could even change the stats. I guess I can show you some more cool things you can do once you have a report open, because we didn't go through all your options. So I showed you that you can print the report. If your agency has bulk emailing, you can also send an email directly from the report. So maybe I want to narrow this report down by people who owe me money and send a reminder like, hey, your bill's due, please pay it. I can send out some more information about bulk emailing with the follow-up email. Not everyone has it, but if you do have it, it's great. You could also print a template, which I'm not really going to touch on right now. You could export it to Excel. Some people like to have it as a backup. I don't think you really need Excel if you have SAM, but I'm biased. Like I showed earlier, you can add fields directly here. You can add a stat directly here. There's some developer options, which you probably won't see. And then under advanced options, you can do stuff like print an address label, which I'm about to do because we're doing some marketing stuff. You can export all the email addresses here. So if you use another newsletter program like MailChimp, you can export all their email addresses and import them into MailChimp. You can also do the bulk update like I showed, and you can bulk insert a record. So bulk inserting is helpful if, let's say, you wanted to add a case communication to all the children you were looking at, or maybe an accounting memo. And then you can also import into a report, which is a little complicated, but if you want some information about that, I can send you the help guide. It's kind of like importing a spreadsheet into this. Steve from North Homes has a question about bulk emailing. So what you could do is you could export the email addresses and import them into Outlook. I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to do with Outlook. Or you could send a bulk email directly from SAM if you've set up bulk emailing. So I could send you some more information about that, Steve. I have to take a look at your site and see what you've got on there, and definitely Stephanie would know more. But are you wanting to email people from Outlook directly? I guess I'm not quite understanding. All right, I'm not quite sure what Steve was asking, but I can follow up with him. Just due to our connection issues, I think that we might go ahead and end the webinar, but hopefully you guys gotten enough to take away from this, and I will send a follow-up email with information about what we covered today. And certainly if you have questions, you can email me back directly, and I can cover those. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your afternoons or evenings. All right, thank you.